On this edition of Native Report, we travel to the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and learn about the historical importance of white corn.
We also learn about the Oneida Nation Solar Energy Project.
And we attend a talent show rehearsal by a group of 8th graders from Lombardi Middle School. We also learn what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Rita Aspinwall.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. White corn has long played a central role in the traditions of the Oneida Nation. In recent years, people living near Green Bay have begun to reclaim it. Members of the Oneida White Corn Growers Group have spent years collecting seeds, planting, harvesting, and breeding the heirloom crop. Join us now as we learn about the White Corn Growers Group. Braids of white corn hang from the ceiling as the sound of a hand-cranked corn sheller occasionally breaks the silence as members of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin White Corn Growers Group remove the seed from the cob of this hugely important traditional food staple.
It goes back to our creation story from before the time that we were on the earth. And Sky Woman was in the sky, and she was pregnant, and she had a craving for the roots of the tree that is sort of like the avatar tree, the tree of life. So her husband pulled the tree up for her so she could get the roots, and she ended up falling through the hole and falling to earth, and with her she brought the seeds. And so she brought these seeds from the sky world for us to eat. So the strawberries, the tobacco, the squash, the beans, the potatoes, all of those things she had with her when she came to earth. So we're doing seed selection. What we're doing is we're taking the ends off. So this would be the tip and this would be the butt, is what other farmers call it. And we're saving the middle. So by taking the ends off, then you have this part in the middle. This is the part we save for seed. And the part that we took off is the part that we use for soup or for mush or for making flour. My kids grew up in agriculture. They grew up farming. They grew up at the June Hanqua farm growing the organic white corn. When my daughter graduated from college, she started working for the Intertribal Agriculture Council. And part of her job was to visit with all of the Iroquois tribes in New York. While she was visiting with the Seneca in the mobile food market, they ran out of corn that they were selling at all their stops. So they stopped at the Seneca Nation and they said, yeah, we're out of corn. Do you guys have any that we can buy to restock our shelves in the mobile food market? And the Seneca said, no, you have to go down to Joe's house. He'll sell it to you. And Joe was a non-Indian farmer. And he was growing our traditional corn and selling it to the Seneca Nation. And my daughter was completely outraged. So she came home and she told me about it, and I was outraged. I was like, oh, all right, that's it. We have to grow corn. We bombed hard, which I didn't think we were going to do because we had 2 people on our team that knew what they were doing. I told everybody about our epic failure. I did not hold back. I interviewed all of the backyard growers to figure out what did I do wrong? How was this such a huge failure? We went to the food summit that Oneida hosted.
While there, Laura interviewed other Iroquois growers about their growing techniques and practices. Shortly after this, she and her daughter wrote their first grant, and they approached the Oneida Nation Development Division and the local 4-H and were gifted land.
So I have this amazing grant, I have this gift of land, now I need the people to do it. So we had to put in an ad in the Gully Wee Sox. We sent postcards to every home in Oneida, and we had about 75 people show up. And that's how our group was formed. So my goal is to get 52 families growing together so we can really change the way that we eat, we can change our food security, we can have our own seed bank, and we can start trading with other tribes.
As you can see behind me, we've been collecting and trading for various types of seeds, beans, corn, squash, We hope to grow these to a point where we have a surplus and to start looking at things like trading for things. So this is the Ecuador black corn. One of the things we did with our co-op is we actually took a trip down to Ecuador, and we were meeting with various tribes who grow their corn down there as well. Got to experience their economy and so forth. So we did some trades, and we were able to bring this back and grow this. To me, it represented, like from my ancestors' perspective, us trading with somebody down in the South America region was pretty powerful to me. And the fact that it's growing up here, and the fact that we have our white corn growing down there.
Stephen and his wife Becky are original members of the group, and the house they recently built is a meeting site for them. Out the back door is the field where they'll grow this year's crop, and in their 3-season porch are drying racks.
We started about 2 years ago, and we're now recently kind of sort of finished. The goal was to downsize and have enough land to start growing our own food. We have this goal that we kind of came up with as a family, is that we want to see how little we can go to a grocery store. One thing that building this house has taught me is that my 20s are done, and I really need to take care of my body. And I also want to create a good foundation for my kids as well, to at least be around and have exposure to foods that are going to help them as they get older. And also the concepts that come with growing your own food as well, to be able to not only give that to my family, but also my community as well.
Stephen didn't mention it by name, but he touched upon what is known as food sovereignty, a concept that has taken root in many Native nations across Indian country. The cultural consideration is very important.
Food sovereignty is an aspect of our sovereignty because, especially with after contact, our ways of life had drastically changed with colonization, with assimilation. I think food sovereignty is a way for us to reassert ourselves, to reclaim our identity, and it goes along with our diet, our land base, our health, everything. It's our ability to be able to prepare our food, to grow our food, to harvest our food in ways that we always have been doing since before contact. I think it's an overall movement of Indigenous people reclaiming our identity. If you think about it, it was only 40 years ago that Congress passed the Native American Religious Freedom Act. So even 40 years ago, we weren't allowed to practice our religion. So people talk about things being, ancient history. No, this is stuff that happened quite recently. I think of our gardening and our food and our cooking our food especially as really healing to me. It reconnects me to my culture.
So when we do our planting in the springtime, we always start with the tobacco burning, and we give thanks to the creation and all the forces to help us with growing our food. And then we do another tobacco burning before we start harvesting. And then when we have company come from out of state to help us with our harvest time, we always do an edge of the woods ceremony to welcome them into our community. When we have our monthly meetings, we start with introducing ourselves in the language, and we do a little bit of history and culture just to make sure that we're keeping with the spirit of the corn. That's the most important thing. This is really a versatile corn. It has really high protein content, and it's really good for your skin and your bones and your teeth. So we didn't have dairy products before Europeans came over, but we were all really tall, slender, healthy, with beautiful teeth, and it was because of the food that we ate. So we have to give a lot of credit to this corn for supporting us for all this time.
I recently saw a patient with quite a few questions about steroids started in the emergency room. She went in for breathing problems and was put on a 5-day course of steroids. She was worried she would go into some sort of rage and would develop big muscles. The definition of a steroid is a specific chemical structure that has 17 carbon atoms bonded into 4 fused rings. We make steroid hormones naturally in our bodies, and they help our tissues and organs do the things they need to do. There are 2 main types of steroids. Anabolic steroids are man-made versions of testosterone. Sometimes they are used by doctors for conditions of low testosterone, like boys with delayed puberty, or for people with cancer, AIDS, and other conditions that cause loss of muscle mass. Anabolic steroids get misused and abused to build big muscles, and the doses taken can be incredibly high. They can have significant side effects and dangers associated with them, including fluid retention and bad acne. They suppress natural testosterone in men and can cause breast development, smaller testicles, and infertility. Women can get facial hair, male pattern baldness, a deeper voice, and irregularities in their periods. Teens who abuse them can suppress bone growth and height. High doses can cause anger and aggression with mood swings called roid rage. Long-term side effects include liver, kidney, and heart failure, and an increased risk of strokes and heart attacks. Corticosteroids are the type prescribed to fight inflammatory conditions, and they work like cortisol, a steroid made by the adrenal glands. Cortisol keeps the immune system from making things that cause inflammation. Prednisone is the most commonly prescribed corticosteroid and is used to fight illnesses such as asthma, rheumatoid arthritis, COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and rashes and skin problems such as eczema or poison ivy. Taking corticosteroids causes the adrenal glands to decrease production of cortisol, and this can have lots of side effects. They can be taken as pills, liquid, topical creams, inhaled, or as a nasal spray. They sometimes need to be given as an IV for severe acute conditions. Taking corticosteroids causes the adrenal glands to decrease production of cortisol, and this can cause lots of side effects. For this reason, corticosteroids are usually prescribed for a short time for acute conditions or at the lowest dose possible for chronic conditions. The side effects include weight gain, acne, thinner skin, puffy face, unusual hair growth, decreased immune system function, and an increased risk of infections. Steroids can increase blood pressure and can really make blood sugars run high in diabetes. Appetite increases are common, and I caution patients that instead of settling for a drumstick, they'll be fighting for the whole chicken. Long-term side effects of steroids include osteoporosis, which is brittle bones that break easily. Other side effects of long-term use are delayed growth in kids, muscle weakness, and increased risk of diabetes, cataracts, and other eye problems. Adrenal insufficiency is a condition where the body can't respond to stresses such as surgery or illnesses, and this can be life-threatening. All of that being said, if someone needs to be on prednisone or another steroid for an inflammatory condition, they usually feel much better once they are treated. Your healthcare provider can help you answer further questions. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vinio, and this is Health Matters.
Next, many Native nations are taking the initiative to reduce their carbon footprint on Mother Earth, and many are doing so by investing in solar energy. The Oneida Nation of Wisconsin has installed solar panels on several of their buildings with the goal to be energy independent by 2028.
The Oneida Nation of Wisconsin has taken a significant step to a brighter future with the installation of several solar panel arrays as part of their solar power project that began in 2008.
Oneida Nation, Forest County Potawatomi community, Fond du Lac Band, a number of other tribes in the Midwest region have been fairly successful in their energy work. Most recently, Oneida Nation did deploy a number of solar electric installations on several tribal facilities. So 2008, so in approximately 10 or 11 years, we've been doing a fair amount of work. Grants are few and far between. Plus they're competitive. I think 75 tribes out of nearly 550 tribes nationwide have successfully participated in those types of in that type of funding effort. Funding is the key to a lot of this type of work.
Mike sits on the board of directors for the Midwest Tribal Energy Resource Association, or MTERA, whose mission is to empower Midwest tribes to manage energy resources through collective action.
That is an organization that was organized back in 2014. Tribal reps got together and started discussing different tribal energy issues in the Midwest region, and realized that there really isn't any organization to try and bring information to tribes to help tribes out in their time of need when it comes to energy planning and things like that, and so that was something that we wanted to try and promote with this organization. Oneida Nation and the other tribes that have participated in those types of activities, we get it's a small bang for the buck when we do it on an individual tribal basis, but if we can get more tribes engaged in these types of activities, that'll be a larger bang for the buck. At the individual tribal energy standpoint, that supports individual tribes. From a nationwide standpoint, that presents a bit of a problem because we're not able to distribute the funds appropriately to help support these types of efforts. So that's what MTerra is trying to address. See if there's alternative ways to provide services for these tribes in the Midwest, at least, and help them on their planning efforts. 10 or 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago, the costs were pretty exorbitant and difficult to deploy in those types of conditions without considerable grant support. So a system that would cost about, say, $20,000 or $25,000 10 years ago probably goes for about $10,000 to $12,000 today.
The Oneida Business Committee has been supportive of the project, and that includes past administrations through the current one. There are challenges still ahead, but none that will negatively impact this project. The nation hopes to be energy independent by 2028.
The financial aspects of it probably have a little bit more of an impact on how their decisions will come forward. But they've been very supportive for the last several administrations of the committee, business committee. Whether you're talking tribes, you're talking about communities, you're talking about states, you name it, we're all importing energy. If we can try and promote a little bit more of this energy sovereignty among tribes or among communities in general, I think there's opportunity for a more stable energy future for the country. When it comes to energy sovereignty, when it comes to climate adaptation work, those types of things, it takes money to shift away from some of the activities that we've grown used to and to kind of tread a new path. And that takes money in a lot of ways. It also takes a commitment to the effort and being able to understand how we want to proceed going forward and what's going to be the most cost-effective way to do that. We have to have access to those innovative financial tools, and we also have to be able to understand at a local level what kind of commitment we need to make to these kinds of changes. I'm hoping that from Oneida's standpoint and from Midwest tribes and nationwide tribes, we can maintain a commitment to our energy sovereignty and have an impact, a real impact going forward.
Today, when I look around in our Native traditions, we're losing so much, and we've lost so much already. So what is a veteran's role? Well, when I grew up, yeah, we looked to those veterans then. But the kids don't do that nowadays. And maybe because we don't stand up and tell them either. You know, our traditions are oral. Now they read them on a book or on a cell phone. If it's not on there, then it mustn't be true. You know, and I've questioned a lot of them saying, you know, why don't you stand for honorings? We don't stand. Yeah, we did when we were kids. I remember everybody did. And that was the benefit of Chicago, is you had all these tribes there, and that's where I learned a lot. Chippewa, Ojibwe, Navajo, Hopi, all these tribes. Oh, just general. Not everything, but just general. And all those tribes, they all stood for honoring, because that was an honor.
The Multicultural Club at Lombardi Middle School in Green Bay, Wisconsin is an inclusive club open for all middle schoolers. Native Report visited the school while the group rehearsed for the school's upcoming talent show. This group of boys and girls is making a positive impact upon the student body by willingly sharing their respective cultures with their peers.
The group of students that we saw here today are really involved students that they just have an eagerness to learn and a willingness to share their culture with other students.
It is weeks away from the Lombardi Middle School talent show. And for this group of students in the Multicultural Club, the talent show is a perfect stage for sharing cultural ways with the larger community.
It's helping build their self-esteem, their pride in themselves and their culture and their community. It seems like when they're participating in these clubs, the more involved they are in school, the more connected they feel in school, the more eager they are to share and do better in class. The YES program, I actually work for the Oneida Nation, and YES stands for Oneida Youth Enrichment Services. And what we do is we assist in advancement of education, cultural, social development of American Indian students in the Oneida community.
We represented all the cultures, from the native cultures with Oneida, with some of the boys doing warrior dance, to the drumming, which is probably some of the best things I've ever witnessed in my life. Since I've been here, I've heard that Lombardi Middle School hasn't had a multicultural club. So bringing all the cultures together, represent every single culture in one group speaks volume. Every single culture is now represented.
For these young people, belonging to the club has empowered them to openly talk about relationships with students from the majority culture and vice versa.
I'm involved because there's not a lot of voice inside the school for a lot of minorities, and having this with Nico, it kind of gives us a voice for the teachers to the teachers as well, and to some of the students, and it's just a good way to share our culture and a lot of what we know.
I'm involved in it because Mr. Nico and Ms. Stevens have always taught very highly of this group, and they've always wanted to add more or make the diversity more known at Lombardi, and really show that the minority kids really do have a voice at this school. I'm learning quite a bit from Mr. Nico, because Mr. Nico is always very, very on our side. He's always, for the kids, he always sticks up for us, and he's always really giving us a voice, because we don't always necessarily have one in a school environment. He's teaching us a lot about like his culture, and he's making sure that the other cultures are known.
Being in this group helps us all get together, and they learn about my culture, and we just learn about each other's cultures. We've become like a big family, and we've only been with each other for like a few months. So we want everyone to get involved, and we just have a good time.
Part of those good times, like the students have mentioned, is learning about other cultures, and in addition to the drumming by the boys, with the girls harmonizing, the group learned a Maori haka and Samoan salsa. These and an Oneida traditional dance will be presented at the talent show.
I thought the haka was pretty cool. I mean, kind of intimidating and everything. And the salsa, it was cool because, we're making beats with our hands and everything. It sounded pretty cool. I never knew there was a salsa. I thought it was just the haka until Nico showed us all. And I learned a lot of stuff. I learned a lot about his culture and how cool of a guy he is and how much of an impact he makes on the kids here.
The salsa pretty much display and represent all the daily activities that we do with my people, and then the haka, which is from the Maori culture, and it pretty much represents their pride. Back in the days, it was used for, on the battlefield as warriors preparing to go to battle, but now, it's used for cultures to come in peace, to represent togetherness.
I really enjoy learning about other people's cultures and where they come from and their traditions, and it's fun to adapt it into my daily life. I'm one of the girls who harmonize with the guys.
I am actually very proud to be in this with Nico because it makes me feel very tough when I do it, and it just shows our strength as the multicultural group as well.
The salsa was kind of overwhelming at first, a little bit, but it was nice to learn something new. I think it's great that he's teaching us so we can tell others, our friends and our family. When this comes to the talent show, everyone gets to see it, and every family member gets a chance to come see all these different cultures being represented.
I look at these students. I know some of them outside in the community, and I've known them, for a long time. So I almost look at them like my second children or my nieces and nephews. And it just means a lot just to have them, to see them love school, to love themselves, to love their culture, and to succeed in school.
Our kids, our minority kids who were silent in our hallways, they now have a club, somewhere safe to go to. They're impacted by mentors that are willing to be there 24/7 to help them throughout the 8 hours that they're in our building. So our voices are not silent no more.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. Join us next time for another Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.